kind of going a little bit towards a different direction. There's big attention in the fruitarian community
Fruitarian?
in the 80-10-10, and what they advocate is a raw fruit and vegetable diet. And personally, I enjoy eating a ton of fruit and
Sure.
banana smoothies. But I was wondering if I could get your thoughts on if
Right.
this is a healthy.
Oh, certainly it's better than the American diet.
Yeah,
Certainly it's an R10 trend toward a better diet. And certainly people like this because fruit tastes good because it's full of sugar.
Interesting. So, Dr. McDougall, what you're saying, in other words, is that the human body is programmed or evolved to find sugars, sweet carbohydrates, as valuable, appealing, delicious, tasty foods. This would make sense because every cell in the human body needs glucose and or fructose, so which are sweet, simple carbohydrates. So this does make sense.
sure.
And when you blend something, when you grind it up, you release the simple sugars so it tastes good. Carrot juice tastes better than carrots.
Yeah.
I don't even know why McDougall is trying to compare or talking about some processed, refined diet of juices or whatever, because the raw vegan 80-10-10 diet is made up of whole fresh fruits, and as natural foods complete they come. And so comparing it to such a refined diet makes no sense. Either he's trying to confuse the subject, or he doesn't know what the 80-10-10 raw vegan diet is comprised of.
But this is not the human diet. Now you'll live on it. You'll live on more successfully than than you would on the Western diet for sure.
I completely agree that a refined processed diet is not our human ideal physiological diet. But what about the 80-10-10 raw vegan diet, which he doesn't even mention in this video? He seems to, he doesn't. What about that diet or nutrition, which is made up of the most psychologically the most attractive foods, most appealing on earth, and digestively to our anatomy, they are the most digestible foods on earth. And because in terms of physiology, the meats are needs the most closely out of any other food group. So I can see how he's not even touching upon this for some reason.
The human diet is a starch-based diet.
If this is true, that starches are our ideal human nutrition, then how come starches are 10 times harder for our anatomy to digest them? Like, we have to cook them, boil them, bake them for sometimes even hours, and often for tens and tens of minutes at elevated temperatures where no species out of 25 plus millions of species have to break down their ideal physiological diet. And not to mention, psychologically, starches are like 1/10 as appealing, attractive psychologically to us than our tropical fruits, which I suggest is our natural diet, ideal diet. Like, would it be, to me, it makes no logic. Would nature be so stupid to create a species where its natural diet is indigestible and where its natural diet is 1/10 as appealing, where you need to use salt to make your rice and potatoes edible, where you need to cook it for an hour or whatever? Does not make much sense. Most hmm, most starches are so unappealing and unattractive. You gotta use spices and herbs and what have you not.
Always has been, always will be. You'll find me no populations of people throughout all of human history that lived on a raw diet or a fruit diet.
Well, how far are you going back in history, for God's sakes? Because you're forgetting to mention that the Johns Hopkins University of Baltimore, Maryland, has done a study, a very in-depth study of all of our ancestors going up to 12 million years back. And they've definitely studied their enamel on their teeth and could decisively, without any question, say that they were fruit eaters, where vast majority of their calories was from fruits. And you can read this study. Sure, maybe in the last 50,000 years or 100,000 years, as our ancestors moved away from the tropics where fruit grows 12 months of the year. Sure, of course they didn't eat fruit because fruit's not really that available in northern countries.
Steve Jobs was a fruitarian for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can find me some isolated people who are brave enough and strong enough to live on fruit and fruit alone.
Ha ha ha, that was a nice attack. Anyways, what about the thousands and thousands of people that are practicing now the raw vegan diet, the 80-10-10 diet? You can see over 5 or 6,000 members just on 30bananasaday.com, much less other websites around the world. Anyways, yeah, it's definitely not the mainstream. However, there are thousands of people around the world that are practicing such a
The problem with
practice.
fruit is its simple sugars.
Now, this is really idiotic, I tell ya. Simple carbohydrates is what every cell in the human body is fueled by. And not just fueled by, but the building blocks of cell tissue require glucose and fructose. And the brain exclusively runs on glucose. And if you are consuming complex carbohydrates like starches, then the body is taking hour or two to digest this stuff and break it down into its smaller constituents. So the complex carbs become simple carbs anyways. It just is a lot less efficient and takes hours. And this is just ridiculous because every cell is fueled by glucose and fructose. This is what creates ATP. This is exactly what we need. What a joke.
It's short acting in terms of satisfaction, a hunger drive. It just doesn't cut it.
Obviously, he doesn't know what the heck he's talking about because I many times have eaten meals where I lasted for 4 hours of hard work. Rain, 5 degrees, working outside with big ladders and pressure washing 3-story buildings, moving my ass. And, obviously he's confusing it because most people don't know how to load up on proper amount of volume, 4 pounds of high density fruit like that are carbohydrate rich. Of course, most people don't know this and they go on cucumbers and tomatoes, but you load up on stuff like bananas and figs and persimmons and mangoes, you're gonna be good. So I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe he has a problem with eating like 1 pound of food and he thinks that this is a proper volume or something like that. But if you properly load up and you eat 1,000 calories or more, it's easy to do so in one stomach. Then you should last for hours, 3 to 5 hours, anyways. And of course, this might be influenced by most people not fasting, so their digestive system is basically still messed up, or they have all kinds of junk within their digestive system. Therefore, it mixes up, creates diarrhea, creates indigestion because of all kinds of weaknesses. They haven't fasted and repaired anything and healed anything. So, there's many complications. But if you fast, and you know how to eat calorie-rich fruits, especially tropical rich foods, and you know how to load up volume-wise, and you know how to food combine, Not that you're gonna basically make ridiculous food combinations that will just ferment, but actually the ones that you can digest properly and absorb properly. Then you can actually last for a long time. So I don't know what he's talking about. I made thousands of meals over the last decade, 9 years plus, and I last for a few hours each time. So I don't know what he's talking about.
And plus, fruits are only available during a short season of the year. So
Hey, doesn't really everything have a short harvest time? Every single thing, from grains to fruits to vegetables, you gotta harvest or it spoils. Another point, what about the tropics, man? There's Unless you live in the tropics. There you will have not only the most appealing, most digestible foods on earth, but they will be available year round. Besides, we both know that what governs what their ideal physiological diet of any species is its anatomy, psychology, and physiology. So this idea about how long things last or how are they available or how many people consume it or whatever makes very, very bad points.
if you were going to be a fruitarian in any time of history, what are you going to do in the winter?
How about live in the tropics, man? Besides, this point is a joke. Nothing grows in the wintertime, pretty much. And your starches don't grow in wintertime anyway. So, what are you trying to say? Fruit doesn't grow just as the starches don't grow in wintertime.
Yeah.
What are you going to do in the spring? You're dead meat.
Yep.
That never happened. Whereas starches are available all year long. Starches store easily. You can store potatoes you freeze dry them, which they did naturally 10,000 years ago even. You can store freeze-dried potatoes for 10 years. You can take your rice and your corn and your beans and you can put them in a cool, dry place. It'll last for years.
Note how McDogall cleverly mentions that you can store things forever, but not really that his starches grow year round. Just like everything else doesn't grow year round in the wintertime, especially. And my point is here that you can store anything if you really put your mind to it. If you dehydrate and refrigerate or freeze your fruits and vegetables, they will last just as long as your starches. And so what point does this really make? It's such insignificant point.
So winter comes, you've got food.
Hey McDougal, if you're worried about having food so much during wintertime, how about you actually start focusing that if you live in your natural climate, like the tropics, which does never have wintertime, you're gonna be safe. And wouldn't that make logic that we like the warmth, we dress warm, we have bedding, heating, housing, we like 25 to 30 degrees, we like sunshine. Wouldn't this tell you, wouldn't this kind of knock on your um, door saying that maybe we are tropical warm weather creatures?
We are human beings. We have evolved above the lesser primates because of our ability to digest starch.
If we've so evolved to digest this starch, how come we have to break down our food and use heat cooking to actually be able to even consume this? How come fruits are still 10 times easier to digest? In conclusion, human ideal foods, natural foods are tropical sweet juicy fruits and other fruits and vegetables, easily digestible, whole, fresh, ripe, raw, organic.